Hey guys, Iona here. Today I'm gonna tell you how to do top DPS on all the bosses in Hellfire Citadel. I'll be going through which talents you need to spec into, which glyphs you should use, and what trinkets are best for each fight. I will mainly be focusing on the mythic versions of the fights, but I will also briefly go over the best choices for the heroic versions. This heroic setup translates pretty much one-on-one to the normal and LFR difficulties as well. For Hellfire Assault, you'll want to use Light's Hammer and Final Verdict as your level 90 and level 100 talents. For glyphs you can choose to go for Mass Exorcism, but I personally prefer not to use it because it kind of forces you to be in melee range all the time. You will want to use the Empty Drinking Horn and Discordant Chorus. This is basically the only fight in the entire instance where you would want to use Discordant Chorus. Unending Hunger is a fine replacement for Discordant Chorus. You will not be using Libram of Vindication for this fight, since you will be switching targets all the time. Simply wait for a big wave of adds to spawn, throw down Light's Hammer, pop your wings, and build Holy Power to switch between Final Verdict and Divine Storms. Iron Reaver. This is mainly a single target fight, even though there are bombs you have to DPS down. For your talents you want to go Execution Sentence and Seraphim. At the start of the fight you want to build 5 Holy Power as soon as possible, then pop your Seraphim, your wings, your Execution Sentence, and if you're lucky you can also pop the Legendary Ring. Be sure to not use your wings on cooldown, as you want to be sure to line it up with Seraphim. As soon as your Seraphim is about to come off cooldown, start pulling your Holy Power, then use Seraphim and Wings together again. As a minor DPS increase, you can go for a double Jeopardy glyph and use a Mouse over Judgment macro on the bombs. If you are one-facing this fight, you will want to use Libram of Vindication and Empty Drinking Horn as your trinkets. If you're having a lot of downtime on the boss, because you're still dealing with bombs, you might want to consider Unending Hunger to also do a lot of damage to the bombs in the air phase. For Cormorant, you actually want to spec into an AoE heavy build, even though the hands phases will probably only last a few seconds. Those few seconds are your time to shine as a DPS. To start off, make sure you are always in Seal of Righteousness. You can start in Seal of Truth and then switch to Seal of Righteousness throughout the fight, but this will cost you global cooldowns and will not be worth it. When the hands are about to spawn, group up, throw down your Light's Hammer, and about 5 seconds before they spawn, pop your wings. This way you will have between 5 and 10 stacks of the 4-piece bonus on the hands. Make sure you are at maximum Holy Power before the hands come, so you can immediately start DPSing them down. Also make sure you have a Final Verdict buff up so that your first Divine Storm does extra damage. From then on, switch between Final Verdict and Divine Storms and hope you get Divine Storm procs. When you get these procs, you will want to use them even without the Final Verdict buff. As a final note, when you are waiting for the hands to spawn, make sure your Libram of Vindication buff doesn't drop off. Council is not a fight to shine as a DPS for Retribution Paladins, since for the majority of this fight you will be fighting more than one boss. You will want to spec into Final Verdict and Light's Hammer. Make sure there's always more than one boss within the Light's Hammer and spend your Holy Power on Final Verdicts and Divine Storms. Even though you will be switching targets several times throughout this fight, you will want to use Libram of Vindication as your first trinket. Try and keep the stacks up by either using a focus target macro or switching back to your first target for your Crusader strikes. Your second trinket will be Empty Drinking Horn. At the start of the fight you want to be in Seal of Righteousness, and as soon as Dia is the only boss left, you switch to the Seal of Truth. Kill Rock is strictly a single target fight, even though there are a lot of adds that you have to kill. Spec into Execution Sentence and Seraphim, and use Mouse over macros for Judgment, Exorcism, and even Hammer of Wrath to kill the adds. But make sure you use Crusader Strike on Kill Rock the entire fight. If you're lucky enough to go into the Visions, this doesn't change your setup. In both cases you will also want to use Libram of Vindication and Empty Drinking Horn as your trinkets. Since you will be switching targets to use your Judgment on, Glyph of Double Jeopardy is a very good choice for this fight. Although Gorefiend is mostly about handling adds and getting your other group members out in time, you will mainly want to spec into a single target build in order to burn the boss down during the Feast of Souls. Make sure to always be in Seal of Truth, so that you don't accidentally cleave. If you're low on range DPS, or are having trouble with the adds in general, you can spec into Final Verdict to get to the adds quicker. For your trinkets you want to use Libram of Vindication to keep it up on the boss the entire time. This shouldn't be a problem, since this hitbox is pretty big. Your second trinket will be Empty Drinking Horn. As soon as all the adds are dead and the Feast of Souls starts, use your second pot, your wings, your Execution Sentence, your Seraphim, Bloodlust and the Legendary Ring to do some crazy damage. Mythic Shadow Lord Iskar is the only fight in the entire instance where Holy Avenger is the best talent to use. However, this is only the case if you delay the add phases, so that they line up with the cooldown of the Legendary Ring. Your other talents will be Light's Hammer and Seraphim. At the start of the fight, throw down your Light Hammer to do some single target damage to Iskar. You can also use Seraphim once or even twice depending on how long it takes to get to the first ad phase. You can also use your wings once, but be sure to not use Holy Avenger yet. As soon as the ads spawn, target the designated priority target. Throw down your Light Hammer, be sure to be on 5 Holy Power. Pop Seraphim, pop your wings, and then weave between Hammer of the Righteous, Divine Storm, Judgment, Divine Storm. If you get Divine Storm procs, use them immediately, even if the Holy Avenger buff is up. For this entire fight you will want to be in the Seal of Righteousness. Your glyphs will be Empty Drinking Horn and Unending Hunger. Discordant Chorus is a good choice if you do not have Unending Hunger or Empty Drinking Horn. Libram of Vindication is not a good trinket for this fight, since you will have very low uptime. For Sokatar, there will be some target switching, but this is still mainly a single target fight. Therefore, you will want to use Seraphim and Execution Sentence as your tier 90 and tier 100 talents. If it takes your group a long time to kill the ads, you can consider using the Unending Hunger trinket instead of Libram of Vindication. However, if you choose to burst down the ads, stick with Libram and use Empty Drinking Horn as your second trinket. Valor's Cocoon is a completely single target fight, and therefore very suitable for the tier 18 Retribution Paladin. Spec into Seraphim and Execution Sentence, and stay in Seal of Truth the entire fight. As with Iron Reaver, you will want to line up your Seraphim and Avenging Wrath. Use 2 charges of Avenging Wrath at the start of the fight, and then save your last charge for the burn phase. Depending on how long the fight takes, you might be able to squeeze in another charge of Avenging Wrath before the burn phase starts. Your trinkets will be Libram of Vindication and Empty Drinking Horn. Sul Horak is mostly an AoE fight. In order to kill the imps in time, you will want to save your Light Hammer and your wings for when they spawn. Final Verdict is the level 100 talent of choice here. Since the imps always spawn on a boss, you can use the Libram of Vindication trinket and use a focus target macro on the boss in order to keep your stacks up. Your second trinket will be, as it is in every fight, the Empty Drinking Horn. If you don't have this trinket, you can use Discordant Chorus since it will do some nice damage to the imps. A third option on this fight is the Heirloom trinket, which you can get from mythic dungeons. You will want to be in Seal of Righteousness for the majority of the fight. Tyrant Valhari is another fight that is mainly single target, even though ads spawn throughout the fight. You will want to use Seraphim and Execution Sentence on the boss, with Libram of Vindication and Empty Drinking Horn as your trinkets. For this fight, you will want to use a focus target Crusader Strike macro on the boss. As soon as the ads spawn, switch to it and make sure you are always within range of the boss. This can be a bit tricky, however, if you're not used to this fight, especially during Infernal Tempest. If you're having trouble keeping your stacks up, you can switch Libram of Vindication out for Unending Hunger. When the final ad spawns, switch to it and make sure you have the boss as your focus target. Keeping your stacks of Libram of Vindication up should not be a problem at this point. The way you deal with Manarath is pretty comparable to the setup you use for Koromrock, as the ad waves are your main source of DPS. At the start of the fight, be sure to be in Seal of Righteousness. Then 5 seconds before the first imp spawn, pop your wings, throw down Light Hammer, make sure you have 5 Holy Power and the Final Verdict buff up, then use Divine Storm, Final Verdict, Divine Storm, and so on. If you get Divine Storm procs after the first Divine Storm that was powered by Final Verdict, you can use it without the buff. Although most of the ads are within range of the boss, Libram of Vindication is not a good trinket for this fight, as there are several mechanics that force you to be out of melee range of the boss. If you get the Wrath of Gul'dan or Mark of Doom debuff, you won't be able to keep your stacks up. For the heroic version of Manarath, the only difference is that you don't have to save your wings for the ads to spawn, since they won't be up as long as they are in Mythic. You should also switch to Execution Sentence for this difficulty, as the uptime on the ads for Light Hammer is not as high. Your talents for Archimonde depend heavily on which part of the fight your guild is struggling with. If you're having trouble killing the Doomfires, spec into Execution Sentence and Seraphim and use them together with wings as soon as the Doomfire spawns. A nice benefit of this is that it translates really well to phase 3 DPS. If your guild is comfortable killing the Doomfires, you can use Light Hammer and Final Verdict in order to do some AoE DPS as soon as either an ad or a Doomfire is up. The use of Libram of Vindication is comparable to Tyrant Valhari. With a bit of practice, you can always be within melee range of the boss. As with Valhari, you will want to use a focus target Crusader Strike macro in order to keep your stacks up. Regardless of the talents you use, you will want to be in Seal of Righteousness during the first 2 phases and then switch to Seal of Truth as soon as you fall down into the Twisting Nether. You can treat the heroic version of this fight as if you're fighting Kilrog Deadeye. Spec into Execution Sentence and Seraphim and use your mouse over macros for your Judgment, Exorcism, and Hammer of Wrath on the ads. Another benefit of this is that you also won't be losing any auto attacks as you keep facing the boss. So, as a general rule of thumb for Hellfire Citadel DPS, On single target fights, you will want to use Execution Sentence and Seraphim as your talents, and the Librum of Vindication class trinket and Empty Drinking Horn as your main trinkets. If a fight is AoE heavy, use Light's Hammer and Final Verdict. Switch the Seal of Righteousness and swap Unending Hunger for Librum of Vindication. If a fight is mainly single target with some short add waves, spec into Final Verdict instead of Seraphim and Light's Hammer instead of Execution Sentence. The only exception to this rule is Shadowlord Iskar, where you want to use Holy Avenger and Seraphim. So that was my guide for Hellfire Citadel. I hope you guys found this a useful guide, and you can soon start doing some nice numbers on these bosses. If you have any questions regarding any of these fights, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. For now, feel free to comment, like and subscribe, and until next time.